let's talk about the Harlem Renaissance. Now we have Ralph Ellison today, the Invisible Man. Not the Invisible Man, but King of the Bingo Game, and I'm hopefully going to talk about the Invisible Man. We're going to talk about African American awesomeness today. So let's I'm going to share my screen. Feel free to stop me and just in I'm not going to share my sound. I don't need any video. Okay. And just add your own, anything you've got. Okay. Because this is good stuff. This is great stuff. Harlem Renaissance. Now I'm always talking about the lost generation, the modernists in, I told you a little bit about modernism in here, correct? Or no? Probably not. Okay. Really quickly. Modernism is this time period after the First World War. And this is the kind of thing that I teach in my full literature classes. And it's this wonderful time period when when art moved away from what we call realism into what we might call art today. And it was this beautiful time. My favorite is modernism. I love modernism. And let me just show you a quick preview of my modernism PowerPoint here. Where's this is the British one. It's just the first that came up. I'm sorry, but this will feed into what we're talking about for sure. And now the trucks are here. Okay, so the modernism is this time period after the First World War, and so we have these guys, you know about them. They created this whole wave of different kind of thinking in the world. And then you had the First World War, which was awful. Things fall apart, man. Things fall apart. And you end up with this sense of disillusion, fragmentation, this sense of that the world has come to pieces. And this is the First World War, right? Oh, so many people died. So many more people. I mean, it's just outrageous. Now we had the first incidents of chemical weapons, which are really bad. Even the donkey has one. And you can see So the lost generation is this group of people. I'm talking about them all the time. There's this group of people in Paris after the First World War with Hemingway and Gertrude Stein and Fitzgerald and Salvador Dali and Picasso and all these people. It was this upwelling of art. I have pictures of me at the Dome. I love the Dome. These coffee shops. Women began to have rights, These are these artists. Gertrude Stein. This is her drawing room. Look at all those. That is, if you had that art today, you'd be a gazillionaire. That's a Picasso right there. So let me just flip through some of the art. Here's Hemingway, and I think I showed you this. No, I didn't show you. That's James Joyce. Hemingway as a young dude. My man Fitzgerald. So the best way to show you these things is in art, okay? So this is Cubism. Cubism is the attempt to show an object from all angles simultaneously. It's both profile and landscape at the same time. This is a Picasso, right? But do you like this thing? Have I shown you this? No? I'm in love with this painting. What do you see in it? What do you guys see? Just craziness? Insanity? Would you hang it in your house? Some say no, some say yes. My stepfather hated modern. he hated modernism so much, and I would have something not like that, but something similar hanging on my wall. Like, where'd you get that piece of crap? You know, he just hated it. But for me, it takes my breath away because this is impressionism. It's not drawing something as it is, but it's an artistic impression of it. I see motion. I see motion because you see the little swoops here, and the little swoops here. It's almost like comic book. I like the colors. I see motion coming from here down to here, and I see these angular things here. I don't know what those are at first, but then I kind of see like almost something here, and then I don't know. It looks vaguely familiar. I can't tell you what it is, but it looks vaguely familiar. Picasso is famous for saying, "If I paint the wild horse, you may not see the horse, but you will know that it is wild." Okay. It's a nude descending a staircase. So that, I think, is the perfect impression of what art is. It's not drawing. It's not this. You could take a photograph and do that, but this is something unique and special. There it is, nude descending a staircase. And then we go on, and I'm just going to fly through this because it's not really the content for today, but girl before a mirror, our own self-image. If you could see yourself from the outside, body dysmorphia, dysgraphia, perception is not reality, but we think it is. Woo. Ladies, your man's an artist. He's going to paint a portrait of you. So like you sit for your portrait for 2 weeks, you know, like after the 2 weeks, he turns it around and this is it. I mean, what do you think? I mean, what would you say to him? We're through? I don't know. I mean, come on. She has hooves. She's got hooves, you know, and she's got like, I mean, skeleton. And can you see the anger here? Like, look at that. Now, I think I'd marry the dude. Even if I don't even like guys, but you know, like, damn, really, that's awesome. I don't know. I can see his anger and I can see his mama issues or whatever the hell we want to talk about today. But still, is that not, I mean, it's not positive, it's not great, it's not wonderful, but isn't it high freaking art? Look at that thing. It's like holy Toledo. That's modernism right there. And we move on. Picasso, Pollock, Picasso. So at the moment when this was occurring, when all this art was occurring, let me give you a poem, a modern poem. This is from E. E. Cummings. I carry your heart with me. I carry it in my heart. I am never without it. Anywhere I go, you go, my dear. And whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate. For you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world. For beautiful, you are my world, my true. And it's you are whatever a moon has always meant. And whatever a sun will always sing is you. And here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root of the root and the bud of the sky and the sky of a tree called life, which grows higher than the soul can hope or the mind can hide. And this is the wonder that's keeping the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart. Again, I would marry the dude. You had me at I, no. But what is the difference? It is an artistic rendering of something that is precious. And in the time period when all of this was occurring, I'm going to go very fast. When all of this was occurring, we had our African Americans, not in Paris, in Harlem. And in Harlem, we were experiencing this outpouring, this upwelling of beauty. Why? Because in Harlem, during this time period, there was this what's called the Great Migration, when African Americans and people, just people, but African Americans moved from the rural areas in the South to urban areas. That's where the jobs were. That's where the opportunity was. And the epicenter of it all was Harlem. And I'll tell you about Harlem in a minute. But it's this strong sense of African American pride, jazz. We talked about jazz with Everyday Use by Alice Walker. This call and response, this improvisational. This has soul, right? It's not just something that you just write and some people play songs. Dare I do it? That's somebody else's song, right? I'm playing it. But other people can just make music. That's different from playing a song, right? Jazz is making music. Jazz is making music. And this comes straight out of African American history, roots, and culture. And like I said with rock and roll, it comes from the saddest songs, the saddest sounds on the planet, according to Frederick Douglass, the slave songs. Go down to the river, go down. Okay. This Harlem Renaissance explores these southern roots, right? Southern, rural, and usually agricultural roots. It seeks to represent the African American experience in its real detail, but not in a overtly negative sense, more in order to, like I say somewhere here, debunk the minstrel stereotypes. You know what minstrel is? This is like blackface. To debunk this minstrel stereotype, to create this cultural awakening, reclaim Black history and culture, and to look past slavery, to bring out the folk. And I'll talk about folk in a minute, but I guess maybe above all, to plant a flag in the ground and prove, not claim, prove the equality of Black folks with whites through literature, art, culture, and everything else. Dance, theater, the humanities, basically. Where is Harlem? Harlem is Manhattan. It's up in the north, right? So here we have Jersey, Brooklyn, Queens. Yeah. So north is up here. This is Manhattan Island. Just get your bearings. Times Square. This is this is all the whole Wall Street and all that. This is the what do you call them? World Trade Center, right? All that kind of stuff. Now, interesting enough, Greenwich Village is the only place in Manhattan that isn't the grid pattern. Grid pattern kind of sucks. But anyway, so here we have up here in Harlem. This over here is the Harlem of the 20s, from the teens to the 30s. And keep in mind, the Harlem Renaissance is from 1919 to 1937. Black people from all over America flocked into these places. I can best show you things through art. A picture is worth 1,000 words. A piece of art is worth 1,000 pictures, I think. So here's Tanner, my man Tanner. Tanner's the first African-American artist to reach international acclaim. My neighbor right across the street, he's the most interesting dude on the planet. It's like, Colin. Yeah, Steve, what's up? Colin, I'm going to see a modernist artist this weekend in Chicago. I'm going to see all of his paintings. And I said, oh, that sounds really cool. Like, which one? He says, Henry Tanner. I'm like, really? He's, so I was, wow. So he got to go see this dude. If you're at all interested at all, Tanner is the man. This is one of his more realistic pieces, but he has modernistic pieces. If you're at all interested, just type in Tanner into the Googles and you'll get it. Believe me, you'll get it. The Annunciation is the moment when, in the Christian belief, is the moment when God appeared to Mary and impregnated her with Jesus. Now, I have a kind of a man crush on this dude, James Van Der Zee. He's a photographer. Check out his work. It literally takes my breath away. I was a photographer at one point in time. When I was very young, I took black and white photos and developed them because I was the yearbook photographer at my high school. But yeah, so I know the difficulty of creating contrast like this. And my copy of this may not be great, but let me assure you that these photographs are spectacular. And he took images of the people in Harlem. And there's many more. I mean, I can't put them all. I mean, look at them. Look at them. That'd be killer kick ass today, right? I wish they'd show up at my party. Like, damn, come on in. Show up in like a, what is that? Maybe like a Rolls Royce or something in your fur coats. I mean, not that I like fur coats, but I understand. Jean-Michel Basquiat. That is an image of another artist that I'll show you in a minute by James Van Der Zee. Look at the contrast. Look at the composition. Look at the depth of field, they call it. So this is completely out of focus. This is perfectly in focus, right? And why is he so painty? Because he's an artist. That's my favorite right there. That right there, that speaks to me. His expression. Now we're getting into more modernistic pieces. Now, there is jazz is to jazz is to blues as art is to folk art. So blues has a uh, reputation among other artists because they would say they're not schooled. They're very self-taught. It's very primal. Folk art is that way. Folk art people are not. They didn't go to Juilliard. They didn't go to Georgia School of Savannah Art and Design, whatever it is. My Minnie Evans, she works in crayon. Not a day's art lessons in her life. She's a folk artist, and her work is incredibly collectible and sought after. Yes, I have sinned. Some of this art is after the Renaissance, but it was inspired by it for sure. Is that not something else? You can see the folk aspect of it, can't you? Look at that. Look at the symmetry, the contrast. Look at the content. It reminds me of that old saying, Grandpa, there are two wolves fighting in my head. One's a good wolf and one is a evil wolf. Which one will win? You can see that symmetry. Grandfather says, the one you feed. And you can see the modernism really coming out. This was the Amnistad trial. Yes. His impression of the Amnistad trial. Very modern, very impressionistic. Not an image of buildings, his impression of them. This, to me, smacks of a Van Gogh. Look at the strokes. It's probably, what do you call that stuff? Not chalk, but pastel. It's probably pastel. I mean, I don't know what it is, honestly. Look at the strokes of the. So you can feel all of this from this outpouring of African American artistic energy. Midnight Vigil. Wow, look at that. That reminds me of Renaissance, actually. The what do they call it? The Medici Italian Renaissance. Now we have this collages, kind of interesting. So there is a long, proud tradition right here. Now I have to include Jean-Michel Bisquet. I love to say his name. It's a little bit later. I know. I've sinned, but this is where it kind of led to the modernist. This postmodern. This would be postmodern. Jean-Michel Bisquet. Okay, now let's go to King of the Bingo game. This takes place in the 1940s. Now, the narrator is never named, and an author doesn't do that on accident. That's a that's a intentional kind of thing, you know. Nothing that an author really does is on accident. I mean, if it's a good author, anyway. Um, so you might ask yourself, what does that mean that it is that there's no name? Well, that's kind of symbolic, right? When it's a woman, I would say in Rip Van Winkle, uh, it's misogynistic, and when the woman has no name, it's like she's just part of this background scenery. By the way, if you like this kind of thing and feel so inclined, I recommend you reading the novel The Handmaid's Tale and then watching the series. It's the best thing I've seen since Game of Thrones. Seriously, it's so good. But anyway, when it's a woman, it is, this it's a symbol of misogyny, right? It's a symbol that women, they're just placeholders. They don't really care. They don't have a voice. I mean, why would I give them a name? I mean, come on, they're women. course, I don't think that. But you get my point. When you don't even give a character a name, I mean, here I am. I'm Colin Shanafelt. I'm planning my next novel. What is this main character's name? None. Well, it speaks for itself, doesn't it? The narrator has no name. So that is the way that society looked upon Black people at that time. They don't have names. Names. He even mentions it. He even mentions it. We'll get to that in a minute. So he says, so he has no, so he, the main character is good. This is the long and short of it. He's going to a movie. At the end of the movie, there's a bingo game. He can't get a job. It's not that he doesn't want to work. He can't get a job. Why? Because he doesn't have a birth certificate. Why? Because he was probably born on some southern plantation somewhere. Now, he was not, this is not in the time period when he could possibly have been a slave. But he says his grandfather was a slave. So poverty, it is a vicious circle, and racism is a vicious circle as well. I think I've mentioned this to you before, and I'll mention it a lot more times today. I go outside of my door right here. I live in South Austin near Sunset Valley. I mean, I'm just a regular middle-class neighborhood. We're not rich by any means. Hell, if you knew how much I make for teaching this class, you'd laugh. But if I walk outside of this door right now, I can get in my truck or on my Vespa or anything I want to do, and I can just run these stop signs and just do anything I want with it with total impunity. If I see a cop around here, it's a fluke. But you just go over to the east side. You just step 1 foot east of I-35, and there's a cop behind every tree. So, the east side is traditionally where Black people were tracked, right? By real estate agents, by mortgage brokers, by all the whole institutional racism thing. So why are the cops more over there? Well, there's this traditional idea that that's where the crime is because that's where the Black people are. So you look at prisons and you say, I don't know the percentage, but some huge, large, incredible plurality of a percentage of the people in prison are Black people. And you ask yourself, oh, they must be criminals. No, think about it. Where are the cops? It's a circle. It's a vicious circle, and it's hard, sometimes impossible to break out of it. And it's a damn shame. It's an abomination is what it is. And we as a country, we're better than this. So here he has no birth certificate to get a job. There we have that vicious cycle, right? Vicious. So what is he going to do? He's going to go the last ditch effort because now his wife has a name, or girlfriend, wife, whatever. Laura. She has a name, and he is there she's sick and she needs medical care. Let me back up 2 seconds. You ask yourself something. What is the function of a government? Isn't it to keep you safe? I mean, isn't that number one? The very first thing. Well, I want to be safe. You ever watch Walking Dead? You ever seen any post-apocalyptic show or read any book ever? Of course. I mean, you want to be safe. So how is healthcare not keeping me safe? What's the difference between roving bands of lunatics on my street coming to, kill me and cancer? They both kill you graveyard dead, right? So here's this woman who cannot get healthcare because she cannot afford it. Again, the vicious, vicious circle of poverty. And so he has his last ditch effort. He's going to go play bingo. It's at the end of a movie. He purchases 5 cards. Yeah. Some of it is told in local color. He took a deep swallow. Now, he wins. He gets 5 in a row and he says, bingo. Now, to you and me, what that means is you win the prize. It doesn't. It means he gets to go onto the stage and spin a wheel, and he can stop it with a thumb, with like a thumb switch. And oh, I didn't think about that. It's a thumb switch. This thing that they're doing is called bait and switch. Bait and switch. So bait and switch is the idea. Hey, I'm going to bait you in, and then I'm going to switch it. I'm going to switch it to something else. You'll see it everywhere. Very much in politics. Oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then you get there. Well, you know, it's a right bait and switch. Hey, win the bingo game, but the wheel has to land on 0-0 in order to get the, what is it, $36.90. I mean, in the 1940s, that's a pretty good amount of money, right? I don't know the exact equivalent. You could type it into Google and it would tell you, but it's a pretty good amount of money. It's still not, it would be like a couple of months rent and help with the doctor bills. It's not going to make you rich. This is his last ditch effort. And that right there is sad enough as it is. And keep in mind, this is after the Great Depression, but during the 40s, and the 40s was a pretty prosperous time. A white man in Muleshoe, Kansas, could sell refrigerators at Sears, and with the money he made, support a family of 2 children and a wife who didn't work, and send those kids to college. Somehow, this is off the topic, but somehow women got screwed out of that deal. They were like, we'd like to work. And you should. But somehow the prices went up to where now 2 people in a household making double income gets you less than what it did then with 1 person making an income. Talk about bait and switch, man. We all got screwed out of that one somehow. But anyway, he mentions jive talk, which is an old thing. It's an old thing. Like, I mean, you don't say that anymore, but it's like we would call it today. We did call it ebonics, but I have a very good friend and she called it something else the other day and I can't remember what it is, but it's the vernacular of African Americans today. And I speak collectively, and that's dangerous, but you get my point. Okay, he gets bingo. He goes up there. He's going to check it, and he says, the light was so bright. He's to win tonight's jackpot, $36. You got to land on the 00. He steeled him, page 413. He steeled himself. The fear had left. He felt a profound sense of promise, as though he were about to be repaid for all the things he'd suffered in his life. Trembling, he pressed the button. There was a whirl of lights. In a second, he realized with finality that though he wanted to, he could not stop. It was as though he held a high-powered line in his naked hand. His nerves tightened. As the wheel increased its speed, it seemed to draw him more and more into its power, as though it held his fate. And with it came a deep need to submit, to whirl, to lose himself in its swirl of color. He could not stop it now. So let it be. Later on, it says he felt drunk. He'd been playing the game night after night. He says, this is it. He's whispering under his breath that the audience is, come down from there, you jerk, things like that. He whispered under his breath, this is God, he said. This is the God. This is the real God. And he's just letting it go. The white commentator or MC calls him boy. You'll have to make a chance now, boy. You've taken too long. Okay. And that's how racism works a lot of times. It's not overtly like, I hate what you say. It's in these little things. That's not little, but it's in subtleties. He goes on And it's as if, I think we mentioned this with stress last time, something you can control, right? And that helps. That alleviates some part of it. That gets you some way out of the cave, right? Something you can control. And here he had watched it before. His A short press sometimes gets it. So he was going to press it just short. But once he pressed it down, he could not stop because he knew in that moment he had some sense of control. And that breaks my heart. That was his sense of control. So he couldn't stop. And gripping the button in despair, he discovered with surprise that it imparted a nervous energy. His spine tingled. He felt a certain power. Felt power for maybe the first time. Now I teach these African American slave narratives written by former slaves, and it's uncanny. Almost all of them start with three words: "I was born. I was born." I was born. I was born. And even I show you, I showed you Aunt Rachel the other day, didn't I? And what did she say? Her first words were, "I was born down in Alabama amongst the slaves." I was born means it has a universe packed into those three words. I was born just like you were. I was born a woman. I came into this world exactly like any other human being is. I came in with flesh and bone, soul, spirit, mind, hopes, dreams, ambitions. And I came into this world with a name, damn it. But as he's holding the thing, he says, "Who am I?" "Hurry up. Bingo, you jerk," somebody says. They didn't know either. They didn't know who they were either, he thought sadly. They didn't even know their own names. They were all poor, nameless bastards. And up a little ways, he said, "It was sad." Let's see, it says, someone was laughing inside of him. "It was a sad, lost feeling to lose your name, a crazy thing to do. It had been given to him by the white man who'd owned his grandfather a long lost time ago down in the South." Yeah. I don't think I need to elaborate on it. I was born with a name, but he says, "What is my name?" Because he doesn't really know. He knows the name he was given by white people, but he doesn't know his real name. And that's an abomination, right? It's sad that we have a country that this is our initial, what do you call it, original sin, and we're trying to outlive it, but it's difficult. Um, of course, he's standing there and he's finally the men come. Of course, they're going to beat him up. Before that, he gets a nosebleed just because this is the moment of his life, right? He gets a nosebleed. He says something he can control, and they come. They think I'm crazy, he says, but I'm not crazy. I'm doing what I have to do. I need money. And then the two men in uniform beckoned from one end of the stage. They were coming toward him, walking in steps slowly like a tap dance team returning for a third encore, but their shoulders shot forward and he backed away, looking wildly about. There was nothing to fight them with. He only had the long black cord. He says, "I can't mess with that because it'll screw up the..." And he lets go, of course, at some point. It lands on 00. Do you think he gets it? No. Does he get the $36? No. Because the last sentence is, "He only felt the dull pain exploding in his skull, and he knew even as it slipped out of him that his luck had run out," on the stage. So here we have police brutality once again. And we see that, turn on the news right now, at this second, and I'll bet you anything that they're talking about some kind of brutality of white cops against black people. It's either George Floyd, or the guy, please forgive me, I don't know his name. He's 20-year-old man in Minneapolis from a couple of days ago when a white female cop just, oh, is this a gun or is this my taser? And killed the man. Killed him graveyard dead. I want to tell you, they wouldn't do that to me. They would not do that to me. I have done far worse than what he did. I'll be honest to admit, when I was a teenager, man, gee whiz, I barely got into the Air Force. I had my run-ins with cops, but they never touched me, never laid a finger on me. They did all kinds of other crap, never beat me, never roughed me up, never threw me down. And I cursed them. I called them names. I ran from them. I did everything else. I had motorcycles. I mean, whatever. I was young. But they would, I think if I had been black and it would have been today, I would have been killed. I know I told you this, but a long time ago, I had a cop pull me over, and I have my concealed handgun license, and I don't carry my gun, but a cop pulled me over, and he lectured. He didn't give me a ticket, but he gave me a long lecture about, son, you need to have that gun on you at all times. The best gun to have is the one you've got right now. If you don't have it, it's not going to work. You need to. I told this in another class, and a great student of mine, someone I've kept in touch with for all these years, African-American guy, he said, Shanafelt, that may happen to you, but that doesn't happen to us. And, I know. And so it touched such, I mean, this has been like 10 years ago, but it touched such a nerve in me. And yes, at long last, yes, there is this incredible deep-seated racism going on. And point to the white person they've killed. So we got to get past this. I mean, how many has there been? How many times do we need to see it happen right before our eyes? Not in any kind, in Technicolor. I mean, they have cameras. It's right there. How many times? And how hard is it to fire a police officer? How hard is it? I mean, the testimony in the George Floyd case yesterday made me almost literally vomit, saying, oh, the carbon monoxide, in addition to his heart problems and drug use, killed George Floyd, not the knee on his neck. Come on. So I'm going to get off my soapbox now, but we have been dealing with this forever and a day, and we need to rise above it. And maybe your generation will be the one that does it, and that's why it hurt me so bad when in another class, someone got upset at me for saying I have some African-American DNA. And I was like, man, I don't know how that could be a problem. I'm happy to have it as well. But anyway, moving on. So what do you guys think about this? What if you're going to write about it, that's great. What would you write about? You would write about all those African-American issues. You would write about this symbol of the bait and switch. You would write the symbol of the name, the lack of the name. He doesn't have it, right? He doesn't have a name in the story. He doesn't have a name in real life. He does have one, of course. His has a family name, but he doesn't know it. Those records are lost, right? And that, by the way, is what's so damn cool about the DNA thing that we're doing today. You go to ancestry.com and all that, and man, African Americans today are finding out all kinds of stuff, all kinds of cool stuff, and you'll find relatives and all that. It's really cool. And I recommend ancestry.com over 23andMe, because they do both sides, the father and the mother side. In any event, in fact, I have a half sister who found a cousin that she has, that would be on her mother's side, that her uncle had an affair, had a kid with that affair, gave it up for adoption. Kid never knew. Bam. So you never know. So you'd write about definitely symbolism and something like this. It's a short story, right? But look at the intensity that is infused into these short little paragraphs, right? And remember that it's something you can control. Just for a moment, he felt drunk. He said, just something I can control. I could go on about The Handmaid's Tale, but I won't. Okay, any thoughts, guys, ladies? Maybe if there's time at the end, what time is it now? Yeah, we're doing okay, but maybe if there's time, I'll read you a little bit from, if you like African-American type of issues and writers and all that, I highly recommend The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. It is, if you look at the best books ever written, it's normally, I would say normally in the top 20 for sure. Might be in the top 10. You might check it out. But The Invisible Man, it's off the hizzle for rizzle for shizzle. I don't know. Sorry, I screwed that up. So look, I might read some of that. I think I have a highly annotated version in here somewhere. But if you don't want it, look, it's hefty. You don't have to read it. You just read the first part of it. That's enough. Chapter 1 is enough. It's much longer than this short story, and it is mind-blowingly awesome. The Invisible Man by this author, Ralph Ellison.